Hello, kiddies. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I hope you get to check out my good fiends at A Decade of Horror on the PSVG Podcast Network. I hope you love them like I do. They're a scream.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Greetings, ghouls and ghosts. My name is Donnie, and thank you for tuning in to PSVG's A Decade of Horror, the latest podcast on the PSVG network, where we relive a specific year that was in the scary movie industry. As I said, my name is Donnie Reese, and I am joined here by the Scream team, Josh and Lucas. What's going on, fellas?
Greetings.
Nice.
Yeah, I got nothing.
It's about as creepy as I get. You're not in full
creepy,
costume?
but it's not horror creepy. It's the other kind of creepy.
Costumes. Damn it.
Well,
No.
I'm already sweating. I don't want to be sweating more.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Tonight we hop into the year 2011, and we relive the year that was 2011 and all these spectacular frights that we had that year. But before we do, Josh, won't you rewind the time machine and let us know how great 2011 was?
I'm sure it's going to be great. Ready? Let's start. 2011. Sounds like it would be a good year. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is #1 overall on the top of the movie charts.
I've never seen a Harry Potter film, nor have I ever read a book.
Well, you should see them. They're very good.
So I'm told.
In my opinion. We just did a rewatch in 4K. All of the films.
Wow.
The only one that doesn't hold up is the first one, CG-wise.
That over.
Adele is rolling in the deep at the top of the Billboard charts.
That girl is on fire.
Yeah. Packers won the Super Bowl that year.
Ugh.
Cardinals won the World Series. The Mavericks won the NBA championship. And
I remember that.
my Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup.
And is that the Mavericks didn't just win the championship; they beat the Heat. They beat the three-peat Heat, the Miami juggernaut. Yeah. Jason Terry splashed like a half-court shot in LeBron James's face. I was cheering like crazy for them to lose. I remember that. Cavs for Mavs. Never forget that.
Cavs for Mavs?
Mm-hmm. That was a popular hashtag back then. Us Cleveland folk are quite jaded. We hold a grudge.
We beat LA. That's our clever hashtag up here. SEAL Team 6 kills Osama bin Laden. We'll start off the year strong.
America.
Yeah.
Space Shuttle Endeavour makes its last mission to space, and it signals the end of the space race, or at least the Space Shuttle program for the U.S. until recently. A tsunami hits Japan, specifically Fukushima, causing a nuclear disaster, killing 16,000 people and affecting water worldwide.
Oof.
I have a terrible story about that. Do you want to hear it?
Of course, it's the horror podcast.
I think it's going to make you change the way you think of me. When I tell this story, I get some really weird looks, but I can absolutely source it. So what I'm telling you is not BS at all.
You ate a fish from the Fukushima power plant?
I was at dinner with my then girlfriend, current wife, and our high school band of friends, and I felt terrible the night before that tsunami hit. I just felt awful. I was sitting there completely awful, like just feeling bad. I had like this dreadful feeling, and I told my wife, I was like, I got to go home and go to bed. She's like, what's the matter? I was like, I just feel terrible. She's like, what's the matter? You have fever or something? I was like, no, I just have this really bad feeling that something bad is going to happen. And that's what I woke up to. Completely coincidental, I'm sure. I'm not here trying to proclaim that's the only time it's ever happened to me in my life. But that's one hell of a coincidental feeling to have. And it, like if you seriously have that feeling, you wake up, turn on the news, it's like this typhoon comes there, it's like, oh no.
You had a feeling like one of the movies that might be in someone's list in this.
I was thinking you were proficient in the use of the Force, and
use
you
of the
felt
Force?
the thousands of screams all snuffed out at once or whatever it
It
is.
still blows. Like I again, 100% sure it's coincidental, but it still kind of creeps my wife out a little bit.
I think the scariest part of this story is, are you telling me you were in high school in 2011?
No. I'm sorry, not high.
High school friends.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We were hanging out after high school. Yeah, definitely not in high school.
Oof. I just felt like 1,000 times older. Don't ask, don't tell is established in the United States military.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing ever happened bad after that. Occupy Wall Street began on September 17th of 2011. Steve Jobs dies in 2011.
Wow.
We had a royal wedding. From William and Kate got married.
Jeez.
Amy Winehouse and Nate Dogg both die in 2011. And then to finish off 2011, the way it should be finished off, Charlie Sheen drinks tiger blood and gets fired.
You see that video of him like meeting those people at Taco Bell
No.
with half of his shirt ripped off, and like he
Oh
just
my
comes
God.
walking up on people sitting in line at Taco Bell, and they're like, "Yo, dude!" And they like fist bump and everything, and like he goes to fist bump Charlie Sheen. He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm a big fan." And Charlie Sheen's response, he's like so drunk, he's like, "Oh, you want to fight?" It's like, no, dude. No,
He has
I
a
don't want
very
to fight.
rich and successful father and brother that should be taking care of him.
He's something
Yes.
else, man. Winning. Josh, we gotta talk about you finding the news stories, man. We gotta get some happier news stories.
You want some happier news stories? Okay, I promise.
What was Kesha doing?
In 2012, really? 2012 is the year I'm going to start. I promise I will try to find a lot more.
They gotta find the worst stories in 2012. But then after that, we gotta make up for it.
I'll do the worst. Well, yeah. You know what? I'll do 30-70, but I'll do the worst of the worst.
Start with the bad news, end with the good news.
Oh, that makes sense.
Leave us on a high that we don't want to come down from. Speaking of good news, is that the end of your
Yeah,
your
I'm sure
list of
Bieber-
horrible things?
I'm sure Bieber fever is still raging, but
Wait, who won the World Cup? Was it Spain again? Because
not a World Cup in 2011.
is that not how that works?
Every
That's
4
not how
years.
that works.
Not familiar with Italian football. Let's see. Let's talk about movies.
That's what we're here to do.
Top 3 grossing horror movies of 2011. Number 3, The Cabin in the Woods. Grossed $42 million. Metascore of 72. Hey,
Never
we're
seen
above
it.
50. What's that?
I said never seen it.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
We were about to fight. Number 2, Final Destination 5.
Yeah, it's Donnie's precursor to Fukushima.
Yeah, it was. Don't get on that plane.
Get home and go to bed.
42 million, 15.59. I don't know how 42.59 million, whatever that means.
Number one is
So about half a $500,000 more, I guess, than Cabin in the Woods. Hey, you know what number 1 is? Can you take a guess?
does it have a number 4 in it?
It does not.
Oh, I don't know what it is then.
It has a number 3 in it. Following up its super successful sequel
How did I miss that?
at number 1, it's Paranormal Activity 3. Paranormal Harder. Grossing a disgusting $104 million in the US alone. That's 20 million more than last year's offering, and over half than the preceding number 2 Final Destination. So just taking it and running with it, printing their own money with a Metascore of 59. So, I mean, if you are to believe Donnie, then the Metascore shows that it is slightly better than the sequel, number 2.
Paranormal Activity 3 is on my list. Now I have to talk to you about another one that we just brought up, because I show Cabin in the Woods releasing in the United States April 13th, 2012.
Oof.
Did either of you have that on your list for 2011?
Hold on.
Fact checking.
Pull this car over.
Enhance.
It is on my list.
Enhance.
It is also on my list, so
I
this is
thought
about
so.
to go.
So we've got to clear this out right now.
Cabin in the Woods is a 2011 American horror comedy. Let me get a release date. A release date of December, Wait.
I'm also seeing April 13th.
Yeah.
It premiered at Butt-Numb-a-thon in Austin,
Yeah.
Texas.
So that was,
on
yeah.
December 2011.
We get a lot of these things that they premiere at a film festival a year or two before release.
Released theatrically April 13th,
So-
2012. How did it make the box office then?
Here's some interesting Wikipedia facts for you. The film was originally slated for release on February 5th, 2010 by MGM and United Artists, but was indefinitely shelved due to financial difficulties. In 2011, Lionsgate picked up the distribution rights. The film premiered in December 2011 at, as we already discussed.
Okay. Hey, no, I get it. I did the same thing with Insidious, and the reason I know, because of course Cabin in the Woods is on my list, and it's on my list for 2012.
Yeah, and my only issue is that I will have to double check everything that comes up because my list
Sure. Look,
has it listed at that.
We're not experts.
Yeah, we're not. Let's move it. Well, let's move it to 2012.
The idea is to give everybody a list of movies from the decade. If we're off by a year, yeah, you know what? Sue us. Don't sue us. Please don't sue us.
Don't sue us.
Don't sue us.
Scramble time. No.
Scramble.
Lucas is the only one I had. It's the only movie.
I got it. Human Centipede 2. You're welcome.
Electric Boogaloo.
Oof. No, those movies are tough. See, that's the thing. I love a good slasher movie. Good villain, evil bad guy. I know.
Movie.
I don't like
mostly stitching,
gory movies like that. There's a. I get off the ride. I think a little bit early. I get off the ride of most people do. Like it's oof. Okay, so we've got our mainstream and we've got our recap. So let's get into our top 3 for 2011. Now, I had Insidious here, and that was a mistake. So I had to spring, and I quickly started doing some Google searching, and I hope the year is right. I think it's right. I double-checked it, and I found one of my favorite movies of this entire decade was this year. So I'm actually glad that I was wrong. It made me feel better about what I was about to say because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I came into this thinking 2011 was a little hard for me to scrounge up a few favorites. I definitely have one or two that I really like, but then there's a lot of them that I would call middling. I almost wouldn't even want to bring them to the discussion. There's a lot of other picks, but I will kick off the show with in a big way, and I will go ahead and pull my number 1 and say Paranormal Activity 3.
I went number 1. Jeez.
I'm sorry. Actually, it's number 2. It's number 2, but it was my previous number 1 before I found the other movie by Henry Joost. This is my favorite Paranormal Activity. It is the origin story of Christy when she was a little girl. It features her invisible friend Toby the demon and all of the special effects that they do with Toby, to include the trailer shot where the little girl is picked up by her hair in midair and looks like a troll doll. That never gets old. But all of the background and lore that they add to the original found footage film in this one just was right down my alley. That's what I really like to get into when I sit down and watch a horror movie. I love movies that take the time to explain things, and this one does, with the whole witches covenant and the symbols, and her dad's trying to find everything. And I love, one of the things that I love about Paranormal Activity just as a series is the whole, they really, and I don't think they, you guys correct me on this, I don't think they started this, but I definitely know that's since they've done it, it's almost become like a core tenet across the entire genre, where the whole recording and antagonizing demons makes it worse.
Yeah.
I don't know if they started that, because I feel like I've probably seen something that did that before. Well, definitely Poltergeist. Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. I should have thought of that one. But they really hammer that concept in, right? It always gets worse. Every step you take to go further, it makes it worse and make it worse, makes it worse. And this one is no different. And I love the old cameras, and they have the babysitter comes over and they go to grandma's house, and just all of it. There's just this whole little universe they build around the first movie. One of the things I loved about the first movie, obviously the special effects are kind of why you watch a Paranormal Activity. But remember, we talked about it in our last episode. Paranormal Activity was such a huge hit because it was so simple. It was so indie. And in the third one, I felt like they took this success, but then they gave it nuance and detail, and they gave it meaning that it never had. I don't think the first one ever had that. You didn't really know who Christy was. You had just a couple sentences with her and her sister and a picture, but you didn't really know. And this movie gave you all the know. So it's honestly, I love this movie for what it is with the little girls. I think the invisible friend thing is terrifying. I love the little kid. She's like, I have this invisible friend. He hurts me. What parent would ever, well, the story it reminds me of to make it real is our son, Jack, when he was like 4, came and told us that there was a bird in his room. And we thought he was making it up and jumping around. And for like a week, he just kept telling us there was a bird in his room. And one day we walked in his room and a bird flew out at us and we freaked out.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, that's creepier than a bird.
But we didn't believe him, right? Because he's a kid, and kids say things like, that's the scary part, is kids say things like that and you don't believe them. And that's a cool trope that they pick up on. And dude, I was there the night it came out. I was absolutely there the night it came out. I really like the Paranormal franchise. And this one's my favorite one. So I had to make sure that I put an inclusion somewhere. And until I Google searched it right before we hit the show, when I had to replace Insidious, this was my number 1 pick, Paranormal Activity 3.
Wow. I don't even think I've seen the third one. I think I stopped at 2. And I don't know why. Maybe I scoffed and went like, ugh, ugh. How could they have 3 of them? How could they possibly be good? You know what I mean? But I do feel like I need to go back and watch them. I know
I don't think 2's bad
eventually,
but it's probably like one of my least favorites. I think I would go 3, 1, 5, 2, 4. I think.
What a jump.
Wow.
If I was putting them in order.
Are we swearing in this podcast?
It's your podcast.
I didn't see Paranormal Activity 3 because I'm a pussy. And we saw the first one in theaters. And I couldn't sleep with my one leg out of the covers ever again.
Yeah.
And I still can't to this day. I still think of that scene.
It's a great effect.
It really landed.
Yeah. It's not like you really think it's going to happen, but just the idea of remembering. Well, yeah.
My wife won't let me get a Ouija board. I forever wanted to get a Ouija board just to like put on the wall as a decoration, and my wife is like, absolutely not. I'm like, you realize it's just a game board, right? It makes no sense. It's a movie thing that's been made up in movies. She's like, still not. Why risk it?
It's sold by like Mattel or
I know.
Hasbro or something.
I'm like, you realize that, the devil doesn't live in a board game. Like, can't possibly.
Working at Mattel in the 40s, like, hey, I got this cool thing where I can summon the devil.
I don't think the Vatican has anything on a Ouija board. I don't think they actually, but no, like,
don't even bother.
Has a Ouija board
through movies, she's like, nope, not a chance.
Vatican on Ouija.
Well, everybody had that story, right? Everybody knew somebody who played it and something happened. I remember hearing those stories as a kid.
I wanted to be that kid.
That something happened?
No, I wanted to be the kid that just had one. I wanted other people to know that I was the kid that had a Ouija board.
I didn't have enough people to play.
Just so you know, as of 2018, the Vatican has set up exorcism training classes due to high uses of Ouija boards.
Ooh.
Wow.
Now I really want one.
Is not in favor of Ouija boards.
Now I really want one.
I know what I'm getting you for your birthday. Oh, I just ruined the surprise.
Also a fact building podcast.
Josh, give us a movie from 2011.
Let's do a movie from 2011. Does that sound good?
Fact check it first. Yeah.
This movie is called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Familiar?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It stars Guy Pearce,
Guillermo del Toro.
Holmes. It is. It's like brought to you by Guillermo del Toro. He doesn't really have anything to do with it.
Gotcha.
I have not seen this movie.
Did you watch The House on the Haunted Hill on Netflix?
Yes.
It's like a precursor to that. So it takes place in at the Blackwood Manor in Rhode Island, and essentially, Guy Pearce and Katie Holmes move into this place with their daughter. Yeah, that's insight to the inside of my head. It comes out sometimes. Yeah, so they have an 8-year-old girl, and they go to live in this house, and essentially, it's a haunted house story, but it's definitely told, I think, a little bit, I don't want to say more intelligent because that makes other movies sound stupid, but it's told in a more filmy way. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Artistic. It's not as, I mean, there's definitely jump scares, but it's more it reminded me of like the feeling I had when I watched What Lies Beneath, the Harrison Ford, Michelle Pfeiffer movie. Like
Yeah.
it's just like a constant feeling of dread.
Mm.
Sometimes it's what's not happening is scarier than what is
As I
happening.
say,
but
it's more
there's
dramatic. I kind of
some
attribute that a
surprises.
lot to the vampire stuff that I always think of.
Yeah.
They're kind of more that way.
There's definitely some surprises that pop up that you might not expect. I don't want to ruin it for anyone who's listening and wants to go watch these films, but there's definitely some more interesting things that happen that you won't expect to see. But it's one of those movies that I think about just as much as like the others, the Nicole Kidman one, like another like scary house movie with their own little twist at the end. But very good acting. Guy Pearce and Katie Holmes are great. I mean, this is like Katie Holmes' doorway into her newfound like horror career. So far, like with The Boy. So she's definitely very good in this one. I would say check it out if you haven't seen it. But it is produced by Guillermo. I should say that. It's not just. Oh, man, you know what, Lucas? Maybe I'm wrong. It looks like he has a writer credit on this too.
Yeah, interesting. Well, he does often. He'll help stories along and stuff. Very interested in not just directing, but presenting a story and writing and stuff. So I'm not surprised by that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And I believe this is the director's first and only film that he directed.
I'm trying to remember if I've seen this, and I want to ask you questions, but I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen it, because I'm trying to remember what the forces were.
I can say, well, I guess I could say it. They're
little
creatures.
Yeah. Okay, so I tried watching this once and I did not get into it, and
No?
I think it was my personal state of being at the time. I was quite tired, but I don't know, something happened, left a bad taste in my mouth. I need to come back to this one because I love me some Guillermo del Toro, and something went horribly wrong when I tried to watch this. And
I mean, this happens in horror movies a lot, though. There's definitely wide diversions for people's tastes.
True.
There's totally been movies that I didn't like when I saw them in theaters, but I liked them when I watched them at home, or the vice versa. There's been movies that I think I loved the first time I saw it. I watched it 2 or 3 times. I'm like, this isn't as good as I think it was.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that doesn't make me feel so bad, but I am willing to give it another try.
Cool.
For me, and oh man, I feel like I'm about to get a lot of crap for this, but we'll see.
Yeah, let's do it.
My number 3, and I added this because I don't know. Well, let's just get into it. Hobo with a Shotgun.
This is another one I've never seen.
You put this as a horror movie?
Really?
I'm loving this episode. This is, listeners, I am listening right along with you as I am marking down homework to watch later.
Nice. Now, okay, this is not a traditional horror movie in the sense that it might not be scary per se, but it definitely has the gore, the idea of somebody going on a rampage, like from that perspective. Yes, but it's not going to scare you. So that's probably why I felt like I would get some crap for it if you guys were familiar with it. So basically, the title is what happens. It's a hobo with a shotgun. It has the type of feel of sort of like, it has a Grindhouse feel. So this movie got made because it was a joke Grindhouse trailer for another movie, and I don't remember what that movie necessarily was. But yeah, it has that Grindhouse feel. It reminds me of RoboCop in a way, because if you remember, there is a lot of gore, I guess, a lot of violence in those types of movies where people get shot and the blood packs are like exploding, like you're waiting for arms to get shot off with just a little pistol or whatever. But it has so much, if I remember correctly, it has so much aesthetic, and it definitely is style over substance, and just very, I don't know, like it goes in one direction and it just plows in that direction.
Just goes for it.
Like just goes for it in that way. And for that, I give it props, because, sometimes you get the diluted vision of what somebody intended to make after it's gone through a studio and other, the 100-person crew and everything. But this, I feel like, is definitely a distilled vision. It has Rutger Hauer in it, directed by Jason Eisner. And I feel like I should know. Let's see. Known for VHS 2, so he probably did a short in that. Death Note, which is more recent.
Netflix
the ABC. One? What's that?
Netflix?
Yeah, the Netflix, live action remake. So not exactly the most prolific director ever, but I don't know. Clearly, it left some kind of impression with me, and that's why I put it at number 3.
Okay, I put it on my list. You've seen my list. I have a little Excel document where I keep all the movies that I want to watch, the movies that I want to buy, the TV shows, the release dates. So I just put it on the list. I will definitely give it a watch.
I hope you don't hate me.
Did you guys? I never actually touched back. Did you guys have an easy time finding your top 3 from 2011, or did you feel like you had to dig a little bit more?
No, digging. I definitely feel like this is my weakest list.
I
will be.
I just had to bump up my 4 to number 3 because of Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, exactly.
My number 3, and I actually think it's one of the better movies that I've watched. It's interesting because I also bring one that I definitely think it's a horror movie, but it doesn't necessarily count. It's definitely more of that more dramatic psychological thriller type, and that is, We Need to Talk About Kevin, starring Tilda Swinton and John C. Reilly, which I did not expect to get a credit on our show at any point in time. Have you guys seen this movie?
No, but I didn't realize, I'm writing up from my list, that it would be in this genre.
It has been nominated for tons of awards. It was nominated for a Golden Globe. I think Tilda Swinton won Best Actress movie is one of my special notes that I wrote about it. It is directed by Lynn Ramsey. She also directed You Were Never Here with Joaquin Phoenix. And this movie is powerful. It's really good. I definitely wanted to give it credit. It's not necessarily like a Donnie type of movie. This is actually one that I also think of, like I pull from my wife. She was really into it. It pulls from The Omen in the sense that Tilda Swinton plays the mom who has a child who is disconnected. He's detached. He's not affectionate. He's not doing childlike things. And she sees it from a very young age. And she tries to tell her husband, but her husband doesn't listen to her. And she tries to tell the doctor, and the doctor doesn't listen to her. And the thing about this movie is constantly going back and forth from like present day to the past, present day to the past. It does it often. And you see this Kevin, I forget the name of the actor. He's also in Perks of a Wallflower. I do remember that because I like that movie quite a bit. And but the son, as he grows up, he becomes more and more manipulative and more sinister, and he kind of manipulates his mom and finds things to hold over her, and he does evil things, like he kills animals, like his sister's guinea pig, and he learns archery from his dad, and his mom and dad eventually get a divorce, and then ultimately the movie kind of crescendos with what you realize is that Kevin locks the kids at his school in a gymnasium and he shoots them with arrows. And it's kind of a play on a school shooting. And I definitely think it hits in a year of 2011 where we were Columbine and I'm not sure if Sandy Hook was at this point yet. I don't think so. But, definitely all of the stuff. This has definitely been an occurrence. And to be honest with you, I think it's kind of amazing that more horror movies haven't gone that route. Because I think horror movies definitely dip a toe kind of and push the limit on what's considered taboo and whatnot. I think the movie may probably have gotten more run if it was an actual school shooting versus like a bow. But he kills multiple people, and it's kind of, as you do this back and forth with the time jump, the time skip, you see his mom having to deal with the people in the town of her son having been this way. And then it ends with them in a prison together. And that's basically the plot of the movie. So sorry for spoilers, but trust me when I tell you, knowing doesn't spoil what's to be seen. It's a gripping thriller, and it's definitely horrific. And like I said, it definitely kind of plays on The Omen. I think it's one of the best acting jobs I've seen in a horror movie. And it's on my shelf for sure. I think it's a must own. And if you guys have never seen it, it's a good one.
I remember this getting, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago after, because when you said this, I thought that came out in 2011, because I feel like 2 or 3, 4 years ago, this was getting a lot of buzz for being on Netflix or something like that. Like it had just come out. You know, it felt to me like it was a Netflix original or something, because I remember people talking about it. And maybe it was because it didn't get enough attention when it first came out, even though you just talked about all the accolades and everything. And the book that it's based on was also mentioned when I was looking into it. I'm surprised I haven't watched it, but I meant to. But for some reason, I didn't think this was from 2011. So
I have it listed for October 2011 for U.S. release. And I now must say, as I've been feverishly doing double duty and looking up what was my number one has a release for 2013. So it's no longer my number one. So my number one for this year is Paranormal Activity 3.
Gotcha. See, not anybody can just hop up here and do a podcast about horror movies. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
The years are tough. Like when we set off to do this, we wanted to pick, a format that would keep us honest and keep us condensed. And it's difficult because you're right. If you just go to IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or a quick Google search, you don't necessarily know what the date that they're talking about is. Is it the unveiling? Movies unveil 2 or 3 years before they actually come out. And we want to go by... We want to go by the year that we actually could have seen it. Like we were in the theater and we saw it, not the time it came out. We don't go, at least I don't know if you guys, I don't go to the Cannes Film Festival. I'm not at the Toronto Film Festival. So I don't know, maybe Josh or worldwide. I don't know.
I have been to one locally and I worked it and I haven't been back since. So if that tells you anything. I don't find them to be a very fun scene, just as a side note, because you're there to watch a bunch of stuff that you don't know what you're going to see. And some of the movies I put on, people walked out of because you don't necessarily know what you're going to watch when you go there. So
yeah, sure. So it's back to you, Josh, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. The only other movie that I had down, at least when my initial research, was The Right with Anthony Hopkins, which my wife liked. I don't have a whole lot of things to say about it, so I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way now. It was on my list, but it would not be one that I would recommend. So I'm interested to hear if you guys have other ones that I just missed. But again, the 2011 was hard for me. I went digging for this one.
Well, I'm going to be under some scrutiny for my next two, so we'll see how this works out. So for my number 2, did you do your number 2, Lucas?
No, I've only done 3.
Okay. My number 2 is Final Destination 5. Simply because the gymnastics scene alone is one of the most ridiculous scenes I've ever seen in a film.
I need to know one thing. Is this the one where the tire hits the person's face?
No.
And it's not the best one. Because I remember watching one of them, and I've seen like one and this other one. Do I have my YouTube? I can have it up.
Look up Final Destination 5 gymnastics.
Yeah,
and you just
ridiculous is the correct word.
I can appreciate this film now more. Final Destination 1, seriously, still.
Oh, great film.
The movie that makes you think a bus is going to hit everyone at any time they walk down a street. In any movie or in real life. It has a lasting effect. Final Destination 5, they really... I don't want to call it a great film, because it's not a film. It's a funny horror movie. And I think there's still space for those.
It's like a shtick kind of.
And Tony Todd is still in it, and you still have this like overwhelming sense of what's going to happen, but now it's going to be something.
And I like franchises that play with that and are open to risk taking and have fun with that. I know a lot of franchises. I was actually listening to an episode of Postmortem, which is a podcast plug for you guys, and I was listening to a specific director talk about a long-running series he's directed, and he specifically was talking about one of them that was pretty much like trashed and slammed on for going differently. Yeah. And he's like, look, dude, I've been making this movie for 20 years. Like, I can't keep making the same movie. We wanted to change it up and we wanted to play with it. And I was interested. It was just the logic that I'd never quite heard before. Because, you go to see a franchise, like a license, and you think you know what you're in for. And I think that's a part of being in a franchise is that you want it to respect that. But listening to a director's side of it, he's like, that was the horror one, this was the psychological one, this one was the funny one. It was almost like it was a different type of take all around, and it kind of existed in this collected universe, and I can appreciate that point of view.
Yeah.
Go, Lucas.
So I'm being taken on a adventure here of just like, is it going to happen yet? Is it going to happen? I'm watching 4 minutes of gymnastics here with like near misses. It's like, nope, it's not this thing. Like, there's so many things happening. It's like, am I walking in every room and possibly dying by 5 different things that I'm almost missing? So it makes me giggle when you say it is kind of comedic, because it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just like, it reminds me of when I played Until Dawn.
Yeah.
But even more so, just like, you're just like, is this going to be how it is? I mean, like I said, I have seen some of them, obviously. I talked about the tire in the face, and they do have that
great premise.
That fun. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's talk worthy. Like, you know, people are like, did you see that scene? Like, that was the first thing you talked about.
Yeah.
And I mean, from a movie versus film argument of, it's just scene after scene of how are they going to die?
Right.
That it's not really the point. Sometimes, you know, I've talked about, sometimes movies can just be pure entertainment, and that's okay, as long as it is entertaining.
Sharknado.
Yep. Exactly. Some people love that.
I mean,
you know,
I forced myself to watch that film, and that was bad, worse than bad. Yeah, Until Dawn has a connection to my number 1 movie, actually.
Nice.
Oh, interesting.
Strong.
I'll continue with another, you know, kind of, is it horror? I almost forgot about this movie. It was pretty low on the list, which makes me think it didn't do so well. And that is Kevin Smith's Red State.
Yeah, I consider that. Yep.
I mean, I guess it's no surprise, because with that whole entering a different culture kind of feel, if you want to call a culture, but
yeah.
I don't know, there's always something interesting about kind of going into the lion's den, right? Watching some folks go into what you have already, like, it's already set up that this is going to be bad, right? You know, they're going into enemy territory, and that is already setting you on a path to be butt clenched the whole time. You're like, okay, what's going to happen here? But it's not just that, though, right? It's when you go into a cult movie, you have to have a cult leader, and you have to have a cult leader that would make sense, that people would follow that person. And I believe it's Michael Parks, was it, that plays I had only seen him in a few things at that point, but he definitely nailed it for me in this. He came across as a cult leader who is beloved because, if I remember correctly, beloved from fear. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people respected him because they know what he was capable of. If that makes any sense. So maybe not a traditional pick, a couple of non-traditional picks, but definitely a curveball from our boy Kevin Smith, who at that point, I don't think
Tusk.
I was going to say, I don't think he made Tusk yet. Yeah. 2014 for Tusk. So it just seemed kind of out of left field, but after watching it, it was just like, yeah, okay, I can get behind this. And as you had said, for me, 2011 was sort of a rough year. I try to go with things that I've actually seen and not just heard about.
Yeah.
But yeah, number 2, Red State for me.
The acting is great in that film. It just didn't hit for me for like the plot and the story, but the acting was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's the sum of its parts. Kind of, there's some weak parts, there's some strong parts, and then when it comes all together into not exactly the best movie ever, but there are things to pull out of that and go. There was another movie that was sort of like this, where they go into another cult, and the leader just wasn't as believable and stuff. So it drew me comparisons. It had me drawing comparisons to Red State. and making me realize that was handled maybe a little bit better.
Gotcha. Cool.
What do we got left?
We're into number ones.
I'm done. I'm out.
Which we know Donnie's. Yeah, so
what
it's
do
you,
guys got?
Josh.
So my connection to Until Dawn is Hayden Panettiere.
Ah, save the cheerleader. Save the world.
This is Wes Craven's last film that he ever made. It's Scream 4. Not necessarily the best movie ever. However, at the time, it was a nice little, for me, a little bow to tie up this package of Scream. I think they probably could have stopped at 3. Made it a trilogy.
I agree.
But this movie, what they really did, which I liked, was they brought in a lot of young talent, like kind of like the first Scream. So you still have these characters that are in it. You know, you still have Neve Campbell and you still have Courtney Cox and all these original characters. I just call him Dewey. I don't even call him his real name anymore.
Former WCW champion David Arquette.
David Arquette. But you also add in Emma Roberts and Hayden Panettiere, even Alison Brie's in it briefly. Mm-hmm. Spoilers. Adam Brody, Anthony Anderson. There's a lot of, it's like a who's who of like Hollywood actors. It just hits a special, like, it might be so high for me because I'm very fond of it for like memories and like the time of like when it came out. So maybe just like that nostalgia hit for me. I honestly, like you guys were saying about 2011, like you could convince me that Don't Be Afraid of the Dark should be my number 1 over this. You really could. Like my 1, 2s, and 3s were really my 2, 3, and 4. So it could be either, really. But does it bum me out they're doing another one? Yeah. Yes.
It really bummed you out?
Yeah, I think they should just kind of let it go, unless they try to reboot it, because bringing back Sidney Prescott doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm sure they'll make it make sense, right? But I just don't know why Neve Campbell hasn't acted in 15 years. Why is she come back for Scream 5?
A true success story in horror is not without sequels being ran into the dirt. Every good franchise gets them. Paranormal is not, is not out of that park either. Yeah. I'm actually excited for the new one, but I think it's been so long that I think I'm somewhat nostalgic for it. Scream is a huge franchise, and I think in a lot of ways, not that it ever had to be, but in a lot of ways validates and proves Wes Craven's brilliance. And the fact that he could come from something so iconic and yet make another one and do it again. That said, Scream 4 is probably my least favorite Scream.
Well, it's interesting because to me, Scream has always been sort of about the meta of horror.
It's exactly
all meta, yeah.
So what are you going to go to unless you reboot it and just say none of the other ones happened or what have you?
And Scream itself is basically its own horror genre. And I often bring it up before, like New Nightmare did the same thing. Like New Nightmare was Scream before Scream, just not as good as Scream. But Wes Craven definitely, he created all the tropes people made fun of, and then he created all the movies that benefited from the jokes that people made fun of in very clever ways. But since he's done it since Scream, so many movies have done it, and I would argue have done it much better. In a lot of ways, not like the original Scream. I'm not trying to put down the franchise. The original Scream was amazing, fantastic. But Scream 4, like in this decade, a lot of movies did it better than Scream 4 did.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot for it with like tongue in cheek, and like it's like, it's like Cabin in the Woods, except not as good.
Not nearly as good, right? That's when I keep saying it, I'm trying to stop myself from saying it, but it's like Cabin in the Woods crushes this movie.
It really does. But it also led the way for it at the same time, so I think that's still important. But I still enjoy this movie. In fact, I'll probably rewatch this Scream movies because it's been a long time since I've seen them.
Got the Blu-ray collection. I've got the collection of Scream and the collection of Final Destination.
Nice.
And as dumb might be harsh to any fan out there that really loves Final Destination, but I kind of Final Destination is just comfort food. It is just
dumb is okay. It's not.
It is a great movie to just throw on and watch when you really don't want to try hard, and it's just a lot of, like you said, just pure entertainment. Just take it for what it is.
It's a bit of a goof.
Yeah.
It's a goof.
Man, I really feel like we're just petering out on these picks. Man, 2011 might be the weakest
The worst
year
year
of
for
the
horror.
decade.
So I'm looking at because I keeping diligent notes, and I'm sure all of us are. I'm sure you guys are too. But I've been going off of what I think are U.S. release dates. My 2013 is packed. There's like 4 movies I don't want to leave off the list in 2013. I've got like 8 or 10 options. In 2011, man, I was scraping. Like, I think we need to talk about Kevin is an amazing film. I think it deserves to be watched. But Paranormal Activity 3, to be honest, would be the only one I would put up for contention for at least my pick for movie of the year.
Well, where are we at, Lucas? What's your number one?
I said we were off pod. We might be talking about that and made a big old hint. So let me drop it now. Fright Night, the reboots. Now, here's the thing. I don't even remember if I've seen the original Fright Night or if I just decided to start here. Obviously, I knew it was a reboot. And I don't know. I think I felt like I heard some people talking trash about it, having not even seen it, or just when it was announced or the trailer started coming out, people were just poo-pooing on it or what. But I just got the impression that it wasn't cool to like or want to see the movie, the vampire movie, as it were. And then I watched it probably 4 or 5 years later. And you know what? I liked it. It was it didn't take itself too seriously. It's a vampire movie about a kid who suspects his new neighbor is a vampire or something weird is going on. Yeah. Maybe suspects that he's a murderer and then finds out the truth. And then from there, of course, it becomes a menacing sort of this creature is stalking me because I know it's secret. Or this person, however you want to look at a vampire. Vampires are people too, or were.
Were people.
It kind of has that rear window type vibe.
Yeah.
Where you kind of spy on the neighbor and you start, is it in your head or is it real? They kind of take that approach to it.
Exactly. And so maybe it just caught me off guard. Maybe I had low expectations, but I felt like it did better than I had the impression it did or was going to do. I didn't know anybody at the time who was talking about the movie. It was just one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Let's try that out. And I wasn't disappointed. And pretty much for the reason that this is about the only one that I can say is truly a horror movie because of the creature within, I made Fright Night my number one after scrambling and getting rid of Cabin in the Woods. So.
You heard it here, listeners. It doesn't suck. It's basically Lucas's recommendation. It's not awful.
Okay, Colin Farrell gets a bad rap, but he's actually a pretty good
of course.
actor.
I think all professional actors get a bad, everybody gets, if you're really good, everybody goes through that slump where it's fun to hate on you.
Who gets credit for that pun, Donnie or Lucas? Who made that originally? It doesn't suck. Who said that? Was that Donnie's brain?
Oh gosh, I think that was Donnie's. He said you said it. You heard it here first. It doesn't suck. A vampire movie.
Put it on the box art.
That doesn't suck.
Well, gentlemen, I know it may be picking from the worst. It's like at the end of the dodgeball line in high school. We got to pick somebody.
Can we just say? Let me just tell you really quick the other movies that we either forgot about or it was contending against. The Skin I Live In. Do you remember that? I haven't seen it.
Yes, I think
it was about a what do you call it? Surgeon
movie.
Banderas. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
He was the plastic surgeon, and I don't know, something crazy happened and scary. So that was one of them. I think that's on my list because apparently it was decent. You're Next.
That
slasher
was the movie that I was talking about. I freaking love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of the decade, except it released in 2013 here in America for us to find. But it was shown at a film festival in Toronto in 2011. So when I quickly searched 2011 movies, this is a spoiler for upcoming episode, but as I said, 2013's packed. I don't even know if it'll make the list, but I freaking love this movie. If it was 2011, this would be my number one pick for sure.
Shows you just how convoluted the movie industry as a whole is with the way that they decide things. And The Darkest Hour, which is that one about, I think it's an alien movie or an invasion movie, and the kids have some light that came from within them, or I don't know, they use the power of friendship. I've seen this movie.
The faculty?
And I've seen this movie and I don't remember, and it's bad. Another movie I saw that was bad, and I have to mention, is Priest. Do you guys remember how awesome Priest was going to be?
Yeah, with what's his name? Yeah,
Paul
that
Bettany.
guy. Paul
Vision, the Vision, as he is now. Wow, what a letdown that was. I watched that and was just like, it was so bad it was almost good at that point. But yeah, there you go. Those, not a great list of
the Thing reboot or prequel, depending on what your how you want to call it. Also, Intruders, I would add to that list with Clive Owen.
See, The Thing came up for me, but it was all was that not an American movie?
No,
it was coming up as like a Swedish or Norwegian. Maybe it was just because it was shot there.
Well, you know what? Just
the failures of Googling.
I was thinking
horror movies.
One of the ones on my list was Apollo 18.
Yeah, I saw that come up.
Apollo 18, yeah. Yeah, it didn't release in the US, Lucas, sorry. It only released in Spain.
Actually.
I'm thinking.
The other one that I was a little surprised we didn't bring up, I was just checking the date, and I think we didn't bring it up for all the same reasons, but I thought maybe you could bring it up with Super 8, but I wouldn't count it.
Yeah, I love Super 8. I just didn't think of it in this genre.
Same thing. That's why I wouldn't put it up.
It's more ET than it is horror.
Definitely.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Well,
we have to pick one. I am going to stump this time and be a little harsher, and I think due to the box office nature, as well as my own personal fandom, that I'm going to represent Paranormal Activity 3 to represent the year 2011.
I'm okay with that.
I agree. I mean, for the opposite reason of what I said for 2010, I think it's important to highlight when something just dominates. And like I said, it did over double the next number 2 grossing, which was Final Destination.
I want you to watch it. I'm eager to hear you. I mean, I think there's a part of it, Paranormal Activity is never going to like blow you away, as a film. It's a special effects fest is what it is. But of all the Paranormal Activities, I think it does its best job at telling a story. And I think that's why it's my favorite.
Maybe I'll do a movie retrospective on the Paranormal series.
It gets a little wonky at the end, but is that and I know we 3 have talked about it, but the listeners of the show maybe have heard us talk about it before. That's actually something I don't really hold that many horror movies like ill will to. I feel like most horror movies get a little wonky at the end. Like sometimes it's hard to get out of it. Like you kind of write yourself into a corner and it's hard to like find a close. I respect the horror movies that I think do. Like when you do have an awesome ending, I think it definitely like excites me a little bit more. But the majority of the time, I expect the ending to just kind of fizzle.
I think it depends for me because yes, I will appreciate a sharp left turn, if you will, but it's got to be set up pretty well. And if it's my bad and I just wasn't paying attention, and then go back and say, oh, they just pointed to this the whole time and I'm dumb and didn't see it, that's one thing, and I can appreciate that. If it's just a complete out of nowhere, it's aliens or something without setting it up, then I get a little bit like, well, that does feel like somebody's just like, I don't know where to go from here. So
I feel like aliens. That's more often the case than not. Like with horror movies, they're just like, well, how do we get out of here?
Exactly.
Unless you just kill everybody. I mean, there's always that ending. That ending never gets old. Just everybody dies in the end. That's how all true horror movies should go.
John died at the end.
That's it.
So I've been told.
John dies at the end.
Okay, that'll do it for us in 2011, Horror Freaks. I hope you enjoyed it.
It can only get better from here.
That's true. And it does. 2012 and 2013 get going. Banging episodes. Looking forward to you as you keep going. And we hope you're enjoying a decade of horror. We'll see you in 2012. But until then, remember, this is the end, friends.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi ho! Ha ha ha!